My daughter called me last September in a panic. She had ants. Not a few ants on the kitchen counter, a full invasion. A trail of tiny black ants running from under the back door, across the kitchen floor, up the cabinet leg, and into the space behind the dishwasher where a slow leak had been leaving moisture for who knows how long. She had sprayed an entire can of ant killer along the trail. The ants died. The next morning, a new trail appeared 6 inches to the left of the old one, coming in through a different crack. She sprayed again. The trail moved again. 3 days and 2 cans of spray later, the ants were still coming, just from different entry points. Therefore, she called a pest control company. They came out, inspected, and quoted her $380 for a treatment plus quarterly follow-ups at $120 each. She asked if the initial treatment would solve the problem permanently. The technician was honest with her, which I will give him credit for. He said probably not. He said ants are persistent, and most homes need ongoing service. She called me before signing the contract. I drove over with a $3 bag of white powder from the hardware store and a plastic squeeze bottle from the dollar store. I puffed a thin line of the powder along the baseboard behind the dishwasher, along the crack under the back door, and into the gap where the cabinet met the wall. The whole application took about 15 minutes. I told her to leave it alone and not wipe it up. She called me 4 days later. The ants were gone. Not reduced, gone. The trail had stopped completely. The powder was still sitting in the cracks and along the baseboards where I had put it, doing its job silently. That was 8 months ago. The ants have not come back. The powder is still there. $3.15 versus $380 in quarterly service calls for the rest of her lease. That is not a price comparison. That is a scam exposed. But here is what should make you angry. The powder I used has been available at hardware stores for decades. It has been used in agricultural grain storage since the early 1900s to keep insects out of wheat, corn, and rice silos. The food processing industry uses it. Organic farmers use it. Veterinarians recommend it for flea control. The science is documented in hundreds of peer-reviewed studies. And yet the pest control industry, which generates over $20 billion a year in the United States alone, has made sure that the average homeowner has never heard its name. In the next 28 minutes, you are going to learn 3 things. First, the exact powder, where to buy it, and the physics of how it kills insects through a mechanism so elegant that no insect on Earth can ever develop resistance to it. Second, the step-by-step application process for ants, roaches, bedbugs, fleas, silverfish, and every other crawling pest in your home. And third, the story of how the chemical pesticide industry replaced a permanent, physical pest control method with synthetic poisons that need to be reapplied every 3 months, because a customer who solves the problem permanently is a customer they never see again. Stay until the end, because there are 5 mistakes that can make this powder useless or genuinely dangerous to your health. And the first one is the difference between a product that is safe to use around your family and a product that can cause serious lung damage. You are lying in bed at 2 in the morning. Something woke you up. A tickle on your arm. You brush it away without opening your eyes. Then it happens again on your ankle. You turn on the light and there is a roach on your nightstand. You are fully awake now, and fully disgusted. The next morning, you pull the refrigerator away from the wall and find droppings in the gap behind it. You check under the kitchen sink and find more. You check the bathroom cabinet and find a roach carcass. They are in your house. They have probably been in your house for weeks, coming out at night when you are asleep, eating crumbs off the floor, drinking condensation off the pipes, living inside your walls where you cannot see them. So you go to the hardware store. You buy a can of roach spray for $8. You buy roach bait stations for another $12. You spray behind the refrigerator, under the sink, along the baseboards. You place the bait stations in the kitchen and the bathrooms. The activity slows for a couple of weeks. You start to relax. But a month later, they are back. Not just back, more of them. The spray killed the roaches that contacted it directly, but the colony inside the walls was never touched. The bait stations attracted some roaches, but the bait ran out. And the surviving roaches have already started producing the next generation, some of which are now genetically less susceptible to the pyrethroid chemicals in the spray you used. Pesticide resistance is not a theoretical problem, it is a documented reality. Roach populations in urban areas have been developing resistance to common pesticides for decades. Every time you spray, you are selecting for the ones that survive. The next generation is harder to kill. The generation after that is harder still. The pest control industry does not see this as a problem. They see it as job security. That is why a pest control service contract never ends. The quarterly treatments are not fixing the problem. They are managing it at a level that keeps you paying. And this is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. In the early 1900s, grain storage facilities in the American Midwest had a serious insect problem. Weevils, grain beetles, and flower moths were destroying stored wheat and corn, causing millions of dollars in losses. The standard solution was fumigation with toxic chemicals, which was expensive, dangerous, and had to be repeated regularly because surviving insects would reinfest the grain. Then someone tried mixing diatomaceous earth into the grain. Diatomaceous earth is composed of the fossilized remains of diatoms, microscopic aquatic organisms that lived in ancient lakes and oceans millions of years ago. Their shells are made of silica, the same compound as glass. When these organisms died and their shells accumulated on ancient lake beds, they formed thick deposits of a soft, chalky white powder. Each individual particle of diatomaceous earth, when viewed under a microscope, looks like a tiny cylinder covered in razor-sharp ridges and edges. When an insect walks through diatomaceous earth, those microscopic edges cut through the thin, waxy lipid layer that coats the insect's exoskeleton. That waxy layer is the insect's moisture seal. Without it, the insect loses body water through evaporation and dies of dehydration within 24 to 48 hours. The mechanism is purely physical. There is no chemical reaction, no poison, no toxin, just microscopic edges cutting through a thin, waxy coating. And here is the critical difference from every chemical pesticide on the market. Insects cannot develop resistance to a physical mechanism. They can evolve enzymes that neutralize chemical poisons. They cannot evolve a thicker exoskeleton fast enough to resist a material that cuts through wax at the molecular level. Diatomaceous earth works on the first generation and the 100th generation equally well. That is a permanent solution. And permanent solutions are the enemy of recurring revenue. The grain storage industry adopted diatomaceous earth as a standard practice. Organic food producers embraced it because it left no chemical residue. The USDA approved food-grade diatomaceous earth as safe for use in grain storage in direct contact with food products. The science was settled, the product was cheap, and it worked permanently. Hold on, because what happened next changes everything. In 1947, DDT was introduced to the consumer pest control market. Within a decade, synthetic pyrethroids, organophosphates, and carbamates followed. The chemical pesticide industry had massive production capacity from wartime manufacturing and needed civilian markets. Home pest control was a perfect target. Every house has bugs. Every homeowner hates bugs. And chemical sprays could be formulated to kill on contact with dramatic, visible results that made customers feel like the product was working. But chemical pesticides had a feature that diatomaceous earth did not. They wore off. They degraded in sunlight. They broke down in humidity. They lost effectiveness as insects developed resistance. Every one of these characteristics was presented to the consumer as a reason to buy more product. Reapply every 2 weeks. Schedule quarterly treatments. Persistent problems may require monthly service. Diatomaceous earth, by contrast, sits in a crack behind your baseboard and keeps killing insects for years. As long as it stays dry, it never stops working. A single application can remain effective for a decade. There is nothing to reapply. There is nothing to schedule. There is nothing to sell you again next quarter. The pest control industry did not ban diatomaceous earth. They did something more effective. They ignored it. They trained their technicians on chemical methods exclusively. They funded trade publications that focused on synthetic pesticides. They lobbied for regulations that required professional licensing for pest control, which implicitly excluded DIY physical methods from the conversation. And they marketed chemical sprays so aggressively that an entire generation of homeowners grew up believing that bug spray was the only way to deal with insects. Meanwhile, diatomaceous earth sat in the garden section of the hardware store, labeled as an organic pest control product, on a low shelf nobody looked at, for $3 a bag, right next to the $8 cans of chemical spray that the whole aisle was designed to sell. So let me show you exactly how to use this, so the pest control industry loses another quarterly contract starting today. The compound is food-grade diatomaceous earth. Those two words, food grade, are the most important words in this entire video. Do not skip them. Do not assume all diatomaceous earth is the same. There are two types sold commercially, and using the wrong one can cause serious harm. Food-grade diatomaceous earth contains less than 1% crystalline silica. It is safe to handle, safe to use around pets and children, and safe enough that it is approved for direct contact with food products. This is what you want. Pool-grade diatomaceous earth has been heat-treated, which converts the amorphous silica into crystalline silica. Crystalline silica at high concentrations is a serious respiratory hazard. Inhaling pool-grade DE can cause silicosis, a permanent and irreversible lung disease. Pool-grade DE is designed for pool filtration systems, not pest control. Never use it inside your home. Never use it around food. Never use it anywhere a person or pet could inhale it in concentration. Food grade only. Read the label. If it says pool grade, filtration grade, or calcined, put it back. From a row of 10 to 12 plants, expect to harvest between 6 and 12 pounds of grain per season. That grain has 13 to 14% protein, higher than wheat at 10%, rice at 7%, and corn at 9%. It contains lysine, an essential amino acid that is deficient in most cereal grains, making amaranth one of the few plant sources of complete protein. It also contains significant iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and manganese. Step 6. Save some seed heads for natural reseeding. Leave 3 or 4 plants standing after the main harvest. Their seed heads will dry completely on the stalk and drop seeds naturally in the fall. Those seeds will overwinter in the soil and germinate on their own the following spring. You will never need to replant. By the second year, you will likely have more amaranth coming up than you want, and you will be thinning volunteers instead of planting new seeds. That is the definition of a food source that feeds you forever for free. Linda, the biology teacher who gave me my first seeds, has been growing amaranth in her backyard for 7 years. She started with a single packet of Plainsman variety seeds along her garden fence. By the 3rd year, amaranth had spread to fill an area about 10 feet by 30 feet without any effort on her part. She harvests between 30 and 40 pounds of grain per season from that patch and uses the leaves as her primary cooking green from June through frost. She told me she has not bought spinach, kale, or chard from the grocery store in 5 years. She estimates the annual grocery savings from the grain and greens combined at between $300 and $400 per year, from a $1 packet of seeds she bought once in 2019. A retired couple I met at a seed swap last spring, named Hank and Doris, grow amaranth in their front yard in a suburb of Tucson. They planted it because nothing else would survive in their sandy, alkaline soil without constant watering. The amaranth not only survived, it thrived. In the Arizona heat with almost no supplemental water. They harvest the grain, grind it into flour with a hand mill, and use it for flatbread, porridge, and as a protein supplement in smoothies. Doris told me the flour makes the best pancakes she has ever had, nutty and slightly sweet, and that her grandchildren ask for amaranth pancakes every time they visit. Now, before you plant, you need to know what will reduce your harvest or ruin the effort entirely. Mistake number 1, planting too early in cold soil. Amaranth is tropical in origin, and the seeds will not germinate in soil below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. If you plant in April in the northern states, the seeds will sit in cold, wet soil, rot, and never come up. Wait until late May or early June. Be patient. The plants grow so fast once established that a late start barely affects the harvest. I have planted as late as mid-June and still harvested grain in September. Mistake number 2, overcrowding the plants. Amaranth planted too closely together produces thin stalks, small seed heads, and reduced grain yield. For grain production, 18 inches between plants is the minimum. 24 inches is better. It feels wasteful when the seedlings are tiny, but by August, each plant will be a 6-foot-tall column of leaves and grain that fills its space completely. Mistake number 3, harvesting grain too early or too late. Too early and the seeds are immature, small, and mostly hollow. Too late and the seed heads shatter, dropping seeds on the ground before you can collect them. The window is about 2 to 3 weeks in early to mid-September, when the heads have turned brown and dry but are still holding their seeds. Bend the head and tap it. If seeds fall freely into your hand, it is time to harvest. If nothing comes out, wait another week. If seeds are already falling on their own without touching the head, you are late and should harvest immediately. Have you ever noticed that seed catalogs devote entire pages to tomato varieties, pepper varieties, squash varieties, but never mention amaranth? It is not because amaranth is rare or difficult. It is because a customer who plants amaranth once never buys that seed again. The plant reseeds itself, and the seed you harvest from your own plants is genetically identical to what you would buy in a packet. There is no hybrid advantage to protect. There is no treated seed to sell. There is no annual purchase to generate. Amaranth is the opposite of a commercial seed product. It is a one-time gift that keeps giving without asking permission or payment. Mistake number 4, growing ornamental amaranth varieties and expecting grain production. Garden centers sell ornamental amaranth varieties like Love Lies Bleeding and Hopi Red Dye that produce beautiful drooping seed heads but relatively little edible grain. These varieties were bred for visual appeal, not food production. If your goal is to feed your family, make sure you buy grain varieties, specifically Plainsman, Golden Giant, Burgundy, or any variety described as a grain or seed-producing type. The ornamental types are beautiful, but they will not fill your pantry. And mistake number 5, continuing to buy all your grains and greens at the grocery store when you have a plant in your backyard that provides both for free. This is the strategic trap. You plant amaranth, you harvest it once, you think that was interesting, and then you go back to buying flour, spinach, and protein supplements at the store because that is the habit. Meanwhile, the amaranth comes back on its own the next spring, grows to 8 feet tall, produces another 10 pounds of grain and another season of greens, and you ignore it because you forgot it was there. The grocery industry counts on your habits being stronger than your common sense. Amaranth is not a novelty garden project. It is a food system. Treat it like one and it will feed you for the rest of your life. For free. From $1. So let me put this in real numbers. The average American household spends over $700 per year on grains, cereals, and leafy greens combined. A backyard amaranth patch producing 30 to 40 pounds of grain and a full season of greens can offset between $200 and $400 of that annually. Over 10 years, that is $2,000 to $4,000 in grocery savings from a $1 investment that reseeds itself every year. But the real value is not in the savings. It is in the independence. Every pound of amaranth you harvest is a pound of food that did not come through a supply chain. A pound that was not sprayed with pesticides, not shipped from 1,000 miles away, not priced by a corporation, and not dependent on a store being open. In a world where grocery prices have increased over 30% in the last 5 years and show no signs of stopping, a self-reseeding protein-rich grain growing in your backyard is not a hobby. It is a hedge against a system that is failing you a little more every year. Now you know about the $1 seed that feeds a family forever. No replanting, no fertilizer, no pesticides, no irrigation, no annual seed purchases. Just a plant that grows like a weed, produces more protein than wheat, gives you greens all summer, and comes back on its own every spring because that is what it has been doing for 5,000 years. The Aztecs built an empire on it. The Spanish burned it. American agriculture ignored it. And a $1 packet at your local garden store can put it back in your life permanently. Next week, I am going to show you a $2 compound that preserves any food for months without refrigeration. The same method that kept armies fed for centuries before the canning industry decided you needed their products. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it. And the video on screen right now shows another food and garden secret the industry has been burying. Click it.